Welcome to She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, Cannabis Socialite.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the WeedHead.
Hey, WeedHead.
Hey.
On today's episode of She Blaze, California defers cannabis business renewals. We got some juicy tea on MedMen, and we have a list of Black-owned CBD brands.
Woo, okay.
I know that's right.
A very good episode. It's a charged episode, I should say.
We are definitely charging the forces in this episode as our country is on fire right now.
Okay, it's hard for me to start with the high of the week, but we're going to keep it moving and we will definitely get to that conversation, of course, because we keep it real on She Blaze. But yeah, my high of the week is actually what's been helping me through all of this crazy. I wanted to, and this is a company that's a bit radical. I'll start from the gate to say that it's not Black owned, but I just kind of tried it and I was really impressed with it. Is a CBD brand called Not Pot. And that is in fact the name of it. And this little pouch, I got a second one, Ice, so this one is going to have your stuff in it, but basically I just ordered their Elderberry Cbd Gummies, and yes, not in love with the fact that the gummy still looks like a gummy bear, but I love that they added this as a new flavor because they have a lot of different flavors. We've tried the apple ones and they're normally flat, but this gummy is elderberry, and that makes sense when we are in the time of COVID because elderberry is very well known to fight respiratory, especially upper respiratory tract infections and disease. So I'm excited because I like the taste. It also added extra things for immunity. And it is one of the first products that I've seen that isn't just like, oh, CBD is just going to save your life. Like they actually tried to make it a synergistic mix for what's happening right now. And so, yeah, I was impressed. $39.99 for a 30-day supply if you want to take one a day. But of course, I have a lot of people in my house taking CBD, so that's probably going to last us 2 weeks.
Well, you might have to get the bulk edition.
They don't have any, but you know what I would suggest to Not Pot is that they try to do subscription because subscription means that you're going to get that recurring revenue. But I do like them. They have a very cute little brand. This is a canvas bag, by the way. It's not smell proof. And with the color, I know for sure it will be dirty in 2.2 seconds, but it also came with a whole bunch of cool stickers. This dope. Is your package, Ice, so I'm going to send this out to you. But Yay. That's my high of the week. My high of the week is how am I staying chill during all this crazy? Not Pot.
Well, I am not, since my other package never came through. I'm actually pretty sad of it because it would have been my high of the week. Oh. But yes. I guess I'll wait on that package instead. Hopefully it doesn't get stolen. So now my high is just basic and I'm smoking on some gelato. Anyway, let's get into these hot topics because that's some real juicy stuff going on right now.
It is. It's real heavy too, right?
Yes. Currently, the cities, countries, people of color, we are enraged and we are burning stuff down, literally. As a lot of cities have gone and protest, and then sometimes the protests have turned into what people that are not Black and brown consider riots and looting, even though they do it all the time. So it's a really intense atmosphere here in the South. It's a really intense atmosphere on social media. And so we felt like we could talk to you guys about it because, like you said, Dasheeda, we always give the real.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll start with the real is that I don't know if this is, the issue itself certainly is surrounding how Black people specifically are treated in the United States, really probably globally, but treated by law enforcement. And, the history behind law enforcement, which by the way has historically been used to stump our growth, keep us in check, keep us enslaved, Jim Crow, all of the things in the South, most of law enforcement participated in KKK. But today, as it stands, it isn't just Black folks who are out protesting. It's everybody of all walks of life. And so I want to definitely start with dispelling that myth for sure. And it isn't of every protest that is turning into riot or anything of the like in terms of looting. It's generally smaller groups. And what I've been seeing from personal footage on the ground, not what the media outlets are saying, but people who are really there doing the work, is that, you know, more or less this is very peaceful and the police are turned up. And they've given they've been given a lot of leeway to be turned up in all of these cities. And the turn up usually starts with rubber bullets, tear gas, either thrown through grenades, which is, then you get explosion and then the tear gas comes out, or shooting tear gas out. I mean, I saw a clip from someone who was standing there and the police are driving through and they're just standing there and they're doing the tear gas. So we're not seeing a lot of that in media, and I'm struggling with it. But of course, I come from a strategic side, so I already know media is just a prop or a ability. It's one aspect of a marketing matrix, and you can feed it the way you want to, and you can wield it the way you want to. And unfortunately, in the United States, I don't think we have either. There's no media outlet that doesn't give a partial, very subjective perspective. And I think that it should be subjective. This is very personal to people, but it's clear which lines folks are on. And, you know, we have the thugs that are looting on Fox, and then you have the outrage of, you know, the police behavior with these protesters who are upset on CNN. It's still not quite all accurate. And so, yeah, I just wanted to quickly be like, with the hot topic, try to set as much of the record straight on what we know on the ground. Because, you know, I lived in Minneapolis, lived in Atlanta, we are from Brooklyn. So these are the cities that were in the most recent 48 hours really popping off. But now we're hearing everything in Portland, LA, you know, we got DC. There's so many different places where people are just upset.
I am ready to go to DC, okay? I'm ready to storm the White House and burn it down. I'm not gonna lie, because I am outraged, because not just 2 weeks ago were a different race going to the Capitals and screaming in these police officers' face, and they're blinking. They're not screaming back. They're not telling them to chill out. They're not taking their guns away and locking them up in the paddy wagon. They allowed them to protest, and it seemed peaceful because the police never reacted. The police never moved, and they weren't pushed. They were pushed past them, went into the building, ransacked it. So let's not pretend that we literally didn't see this a couple of weeks ago. And guess what it was for? To get a damn haircut, to get their nails done, for us people to go back to work. You people go back to work so I could get my hair cut and my nails done while I sit in the house in quarantine. But I do tell people, you know, if they're not going to kill us with the bullet, they will kill us with the virus, and it's still COVID time. So please wear your PPE gear, even especially since you guys are obviously not being able to social distance to be able to protest. You should at least cover your face, wear protective gear, have your skin and hands covered, head covered, and it also will protect you from other things that if you want to get rah about, you'll be protected, and they really can't identify who you are at that point as well. So, you know,
just like a G, you were given all of the little T. I agree with you. Actually, from what I saw, most people in most cities are very much with their masks. That is one of the first things I pointed out with Minneapolis, was that in the case of folks showing up at the Capitol with AK-47s or whatever you call it, because I'm not a gun connoisseur in no way, shape, or form, but they had big ass guns. Let's just say it. Okay. And they're yelling and like veins popping out the neck. With all of that, the only thing that you saw were police officers who were in regular gear, and they had masks on. That's it. Meanwhile, here we are in Minneapolis, and folks are without any arms at all. You don't see any visible guns. There's signs, and what the police officers came out in is full-on riot gear, because they knew they were about to let off a few grenades. They like to show the video of them, you know, folks, protesters deciding to take over and bash in a few police cars and vandalize that particular lot. But the truth of the matter is, from, again, folks who are on the ground, as you know, I spent 4 years in Minneapolis, very close to a lot of people who are still there. intel from them is that this all kicked off because this was thrown into a crowd of very peaceful protesters. And then after that is like, listen, I'm from Brooklyn. If you punch me in the face or you do something to someone I'm with in the face, then it is on. And I feel we've been fearful of that, and I can't fault that. And so when I see things where a young man is being thrown to the ground by 3 officers and then 4 brothers in some in their suits, some in their track outfit, because they clearly was just at the gym, jump in, I'm cheering that on, unfortunately. As a citizen, I absolutely am. And I think that what we have to figure out is why these police officers, even in a time of holding up a phone and a time where we clearly are showing civil unrest across multiple cities, that they're still being given orders to take these type of measures. I feel like the measures have to happen if, right? And what we're seeing is that if never happened, they just coming in and they throwing bows. That's a different thing altogether. Saw it at Barclays Center, women getting tossed left and right. And then yes, men, not just brothers, but white men, Hispanic men, black men, Asian men jumping in and trying to do their best to get big ass police officers who also are armed off of some women and older folks. It's just been like, who got the training? Are they expecting us? We're just
They
late.
got training. They can disarm white people. They can take them down without killing them, putting a knee to their back, making them so they can't breathe, knee to their neck. Let's not pretend that they don't have training. They don't know training when it comes to us, even if they're bigger than us. So yes. I believe, I had a conversation with Imani because, I'm pro riot, pro looting, pro. They wasn't burning, there was so funny because she's like, what about the businesses and the Black businesses? I'm like, technically, they did not touch those Black businesses. They touched the white corporations that are hoarding the wealth from everyone else's businesses, which is a whole different story and a whole different topic, which we might even touch on at the end of the Hot Topic for Hello. But ultimately, I told her, when you burn it down, you allow for to build something amazing from the ashes. And she's like, well, how are we going to build it? People even on social media is like, where we going to get the tools? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, they've hoarded a lot of wealth that has gone mainstream and a lot of corporations, but let's not forget, they got money on the West Coast legalizing cannabis. They lost a lot of money, but they gained a lot of money and wealth as well. So cannabis in these states like a Minnesota, a Georgia, a Brooklyn, in these places like that, cannabis could be your accelerator to better your community. How? Because not only does it bring wealth, it also hopefully will bring the social justice that we need after you to beat us down, put us in prison over and over again, to be okay and help us pass the PTSD. So here we are hitting the health and wellness and being a better person. And hopefully these people get retrained and re-educated so they don't feel the need to take us down because they chilling.
Listen, I'm not mad at that. I'm not going to chastise you as the baby of the family because, 20 years ago, I'm 21 years old. It might be me in those streets getting rah-rah, real talk, and feeling the same way. Unfortunately for us, and I'm only 41 years old. I've seen this many times. I would remember Rodney King, and I remember what happened across cities, across the country. I also remember what happened when the Chicago White Sox finally won the World Series, or was it the Bears? I don't know, but buses was on fire. So the reality is that it's about spin. And I go back to, again, media being a tool in the matrix and how things can get fed to a communities or consumers. It's about spin. We look at that and we feel pride. If the Knicks won a championship, the folks in the streets of New York and what would happen would be off the chain, and we'd feel pride. And here we are, everybody watched a man get executed on video. My 17-year-old, nearly 17-year-old son had to watch that. We had to have conversation. And the outrage that is a result of it, why are we surprised? And I agree with you, there will be a need for rebuilding. These big corporations, they're going to be okay. Let's talk about the fact that in COVID times, with all of the things that have happened, you have big corporations that have gotten away with $500 million that they haven't seen an increase. So while we talk about how businesses are struggling, it is the small businesses primarily. So I did like that Mayor Keisha Bottoms kind of referenced that. And, you know, of course, you bring out the Killer Mikes of the world, and no disrespect for them because they have been community-oriented, building him and T.I., but don't let the media spin the story to act like that's the only place and we're targeting ourselves. You're destroying your neighborhoods. No, peaceful protests were throughout the entire city of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Where we had the most impact negatively is where the police over police. So if you're in the middle of a suburb and you're doing your protest, the police out there, police department is on a whole different vibe than if you are on Hennepin and and 15 downtown Minneapolis. It is. So what is the common factor? And I come back to it, like you said, the training for the police department, the retraining, because one thing, and this is my last part, no matter what we do, decriminalize, we legalize, what we found, let's take our home state of New York, it doesn't matter. The police will still find a way to with racial bias, really harass people of color. And we've seen that even with social distancing. So now it's not a joint, but it's because I'm standing too close to my mans. Meanwhile,
white people ain't got no mask on, no gloves, no
and
nothing.
They're giving them out. So we know that there's a tale of two cities. I'll say one more thing because I like Chris Cuomo. I just want to say this on the record, and that's why I love We Have She Blaze. I didn't want to diss him publicly, but I just want him to, and his writers, to work on what we understand the majority to be. He kept referencing the minority. There's a minority, and I know it was a heartfelt, and I know he is a supporter of us trying to get justice and to change the system. So I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but let's be real. White folks ain't been the majority for real in our country in a long time. This is why we are where we are. And when we think about it that way, as in terms of just a population for real, and also what the trajectory is for the trend, they're not going to be anytime soon, globally and in the US. They're not the majority of the buying power for real when it comes to consumer products. We have a lot of power, but here's where they're the majority in terms of who's running the country. We've had one African-American president and no female presidents out of all of these years of being country, over 200 years.
45 presidents done happened.
Okay, they're the majority of private equity funding and investment money, the majority of CEOs of corporations that are in the Fortune 500. They're the majority of the political leaders that make the decisions. They're the majority of the leaders of the police departments. They are the majority of the folks that are still in charge. So it reminds me again, if you need a history lesson, of the good old boys time where in the South, where there weren't more white people in the South than there were Black slaves. At any time, we could have by sheer number taken over, but there were the people who were the masters, and they were the people who were in charge of the law, and that instilled a fear. And there's a lot of Black folks, especially people who are 55 and older, who are still like NAACP, that is very fearful. They're fearful because they've seen real things, and I'm not trying to, again, disrespect that, but they've seen what happens when you go against the man, and they've seen how it can devastate. And all I can say is, if in the last 50 years we still are watching Black men die in media right in front of us, with us powerless to do anything, do you think we need to keep doing the same things we've been doing?
Right.
It hasn't worked.
That's what I'm saying. All these peaceful protests, not for nothing, they haven't really brought us any closer. If anything, it's hurt us. It took money out of we've integrated like we wanted to, but then it took money out of our communities. It privatized the jail systems. It has taken corporate takeovers of our governmental officials, because not only are our government officials the majority of the other side, but they're also the majority of the wealth as well. How are you my public servant and you got more money than me? You serve me. So we have to understand that. And I people need a real history lesson. They need to go back to their American government, understand these laws that are still even in place to today, because you know, everyone's like rioting, looting is so illegal. But once upon a time, it was illegal to walk by yourself as a Black person. And you telling me that was right? So I can't play these games with you. We're not going to go back off forth on semantics. At the end of the day, we're fed up. We need justice. This is a scary time for all of us because we also have to deal with a pandemic and our government's not really being well prepared for this, and as well as getting killed in the street, not just by a police officer, but you could be jogging in a neighborhood that you don't belong and get killed. And we peacefully ran, and then 2 weeks later, we saw this man get a knee in his back. So, or a knee in his neck. So I think I am really struggling here. Atlanta has been gentrified. I'm from Atlanta. I'm a New Yorker with Southern charm. I came down in Atlanta when Atlanta was majority Black owned. It is not anymore. Only the South Side and a little of the East Side has a big population of people of the police being people of color. And I will say, unlike the Minnesota police, Atlanta police actually did do a good job for as long as they could to maintain stillness. But I do think it's hard when you are when you're just fed up. Even people in the badges is fed up in the Atlanta police. They like, we sick too. You know, they sitting back like, well, we just gonna wait for SWAT to get here.
Listen, you called out a very important point. I saw a number of, again, personal clips, folks who are right on the ground, who basically are, you know, there are a lot of Black officers, Black and Hispanic officers who are like, listen, we get you. They're talking and they're on camera doing it. You're not seeing them in the media outlets. That is not what they're running with. First of all, it doesn't allow for Donald Trump to have his whole reality show going on around him, because that's what exactly is happening. Sometimes I feel like when Chris Cuomo said A Tale of Two Cities, I feel like that's what we are stuck in between. Because let me be real, and again, for the record, this is my private opinion. I definitely feel like I'm not for Trump. I had never been, and I don't believe in big corporations that get to do whatever they want and have almost an omnipotent approach to how they are, you know, ruling. That's not the way our Constitution was written, although the Constitution wasn't written for us. So sometimes I'm wondering what we even do in continuing to reference something that actually listed us as 3/5 of a person. But what it is our law, and I do believe in law and order. But I also feel like on the flip side, we are being covered by a little bit of the from the wolves on the Joe Bidens of the world, because as far as I'm concerned, his approach to cannabis, his politics.
You ain't Black unless you vote for me. Excuse
what he just said to Charlemagne the God, who I never agree with. I never agree with that man, but what he's called for. So I feel like I'm in a twilight zone between two really old white men who believe in old politics of the way America was, which is one, money talks is on the Donald Trump side and therefore does whatever it wants, and that money is the type of money that can buy a woman, right, or you know, enslave women, right, that's that Jeffrey Epstein kind of money. And then the other one is that my friend is Black. It's the Amy Coopers of the world. I'm liberal, but until you inconvenience me, and then I can check you with my whiteness. That's how I feel, and I don't know how to describe that to anyone without getting like the brunt of, you don't know what Trump's doing for Black people. The reality is nothing, really, because guess what? Black people don't have the wealth in this country. If you're wealthy and you Black, then you might be in pretty good shape.
But then you probably telling us that we shouldn't be looting because this is our city. I'm like, what is you even talking about? Like, y'all are the reason why they can come into our city and be like, we're taking your dollar and you only getting a penny back, okay? And that's going to your school system, so good luck.
Yes. And you know what? We have to be more progressive in our thinking. I've been on that side where I'm making those type of executive decisions and we're happy with the 5%, or we're happy with the 3%, which was one of the strategies I just wrote last year for a cannabis corporation to give back to a community. And on paper, it looks like a lot of zeros, and it is meaningful. And so we do not want to snipe at it, but let's be real, on the scale, and we talk about scale all the time, on the percentage, it's peanuts. It's like the crumbs from the table. We know that just again, looking at how companies have benefited from COVID, you got some companies in the $500 million that they benefit. And meanwhile, we got people, cheering and doing literally the dance because they got $1,200. That is a problem.
That is.
I don't know. I know we got to go through other hot topics.
I know. It's just
all day.
Really. And we have to, because when I tell people even in the South that I tell them I could bring real legalized cannabis to Georgia, to Florida, to South Carolina. These old women sometimes look at me crazy, and I'd be like, you need to get your old biddies together, and I'm gonna educate you. And no, we ain't about to smoke no joints. How about that? And they're like, well, I don't want to get the old biddies together because they had a bad experience. I'm like, yeah, in the 1960, it's 2020. Like, if you still holding on to that 1960 experience in 2020, then you need to stop being the one to vote. And you need to hold down the fort and stay old and stay in your ways and not be interfering with this progress over here, dog. For real.
This is true. I mean, I think it goes beyond the cannabis. That's just an example of how that mentality bleeds through all the way. But here's where the final word for me. I want everyone to stay safe and healthy. And so definitely, like you said, please cover your faces if you're protesting. Understand that the media is a tool. And so as you watch it, whatever channel you're watching, you definitely want to make sure you take it with a grain of salt. Check your sources before you're sharing stuff on social media. There's a lot of people sharing videos from the 1990s to indicate, that Black people are actually fed up with the rioting. This is like old footage. So just be careful about what you're sharing to make sure that it actually is valid. And also recognize that some of us who are middle age don't take our silence for weakness, because we got hella opinions, and we in our dark channels, our dark channels having conversation about it. Because sometimes, again, when you're doing chess and not checkers, I'm not going to relay, or playing poker, I'm not going to relay what my hand is. And sometimes you do need to convene privately to determine what are your next steps, especially when you do control some influence or some wealth. So there's got to be inside, outside game, public and private strategy happening. And trust me, for the folks that are in charge, that is absolutely happening.
Well, your sister is young and on the grounds, front line, straight up and down. And as we move to a little bit better of a topic, it's going to be a little bit lighter of a subject because it's the least California could do for the cannabis industry. And oh my goodness. Well, the tea is that California is cannabis regulators are deferring their business license renewal fees. Now, this is important because, as you know, COVID hit us hard. Even though California's cannabis was deemed an essential business, it still hits hard because they pay hefty taxes. So instead of being like, you don't got to pay your taxes right now, they deferring their license renewal fees. If you are, if your permit basically expires between May 14th and June 30th, you can request a deferred payment up till 60 days. And if you've already paid for the year, you will not be refunded. And to understand who the licensing authorities are in California, I just want to give people just a little bit of a breakdown because it's 3 major licensing authorities. Okay. First is the Bureau of Cannabis Control, and the Bureau is really responsible for licensing retailers, distributors, testing labs, and small cannabis events. Cal Cannabis Cultivation Licensing, which is a division of the Department of Food and Agriculture. It regulates the cultivators in California. Mm-hmm. And then we have the Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch. It's a Department of Public Health, of California's Department of Public Health, and it's for the commercial cannabis manufacturing. So they focus on all their licensings, their approvals, their safety.
Listen, I think this is the least that they can do. the state believes, of course, that it is struggling, you know, all these huge ass deficits that are happening across the country in the state budgets. And this is the time that, you know, budgets are really getting fully finalized and approved. So it's just a tough time for COVID to have even happened. But what I will say is I do think it's a little bit bogus. In some ways, if you were lucky enough, it's almost like if you're lucky enough to have been born during this time, because oftentimes your renewal is your annual of when your business was established. So basically, like if you're lucky enough to be born within this last 4 weeks, then you don't have to pay this for another 60 days, as opposed to, you know, the people who during the, really January 30th is when the federal government is citing as from the CARES Act as the start of all this till now. What about those folks? And if you're diligent, and trust me, some of these corporations, one of the number one things you're going to be diligent about is paying your state fees. You're not going to want that to lapse because you want to be in compliance. Then what about those folks? I think if you are in compliance and you are a good citizen to the market by paying in, the least they can do is say, hey, we temporarily giving you this back. Instead of being, well, you're kind of shit out of luck. I'm a little bit disappointed that it isn't more than 60 days because, again, if we go by the federal government, they're predicting and they're allowing up until July for, you know, CARES Act specific payments out, but generally mostly through December, they recognize that there's going to be still some challenges. A lot of colleges are still saying and planning for the first semester to be distance learning. So we don't see us getting out of the wind of this stay at home or mostly stay home until 2021. So why arbitrarily is it 60 days? Is California really that hard up for these funds?
They thirsty.
Maybe, but here's the thing. It goes, the way these tend to work is the regulatory bureaus are really self-funded. So the Bureau of Cannabis Control, all of the costs to run that is coming from these licensing fees. And so, yes, it can cause a deficit in that particular budget, which would come from the general fund of the California state and the governor's office. But I think that that's the type of temporary funding that makes sense if you really want this industry to thrive. And yes, the taxes are absolutely, because that doesn't even touch the taxes. The taxes could have easily been something to say, hey,
they're enormous.
These are the relief that we're given. So this is the least they get. What you said was a little light golf clap. And you know, I'll be honest and say the multi-regulatory system with the different bureaus is not unusual. It's sort of needed in some ways. I like that they have the Department of Food and Agriculture dealing with the cultivation side because it makes sense. Everything that's grown in California has to go through the CDFA. And so don't treat cannabis differently and hopefully we'll get the best product. Similarly with manufacturing and being able to ensure testing is happening the way it's supposed to, because other states, unfortunately, like Arizona, don't have it set up that way. It's one regulatory body, or Michigan, where everybody's going through the liquor commission.
Because they know how to grow, because liquor knows how to grow.
Right. So, you know, I think that at least is smart, but it does cause a little chaos when those things are not synergistic and they don't talk to each other. But kudos to the governor for doing something.
Well, we're going to be golf clapping a lot, it seems like, in 2020, as we move on to our next hot topic, talking about the medical marijuana expansion in Louisiana. Yeah, you heard it right. Louisiana has a medical marijuana program. And I mean, open your eyes, because I know it might get a little side eye, as they can really only access oils, pills, liquids, topical applications, and an inhaler, but no smokable form of cannabis. And it can only be grown at Louisiana State University and Southern University, which hasn't started growing yet.
Yep.
So with this new bill that they basically just now passed in the Senate, it does allow for doctors to recommend cannabis to patients without them having an underlying disease or disorder. So they currently, under their program, they have a list of things that you have to fall into in order to be recommended cannabis. However, with this new legislation, if the doctor feels like you need that recommended cannabis for whatever reason you've discussed, they can recommend cannabis to you, and it's not because you're disease or disorder. Also in this bill, it allows for medical marijuana restrictions on doctors to be loosened, as doctors will no longer need to register with and receive authorization from the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners to recommend cannabis for patients, which is probably the hardest clap you're going to give today.
You are funny, but I'm kind of, every time I wanted to be like, oh, some of this is like, it should be basic, but it's not. So one of the things that I want to just point out is that at the end of the day, if this is a medical marijuana program and we understand that cannabis is medicine first, which I don't know if Louisiana does, but now we all know for the most part in our advocacy circles that it is medicine first and all the time, it should have always been a doctor's discretion to be able to offer that as an option. The only caveat I have, and I'm going to give some resources for folks who are health professionals, is that doctors don't learn about the endocannabinoid system, and most of them have such a negative perspective on cannabis that I would be afraid to say, yeah, we're going to leave that up to the mostly white doctors in Louisiana to, provide and or recommend. A lot of retraining is going to be required. A lot of re-education is going to be required. Even what I would say sensitivity and cultural sensitivity training, because the truth of the matter is doctors are regularly often the people who identify drug-seeking behavior or certain behaviors, especially in people of color, moms of color, and cannabis is usually the number one thing. And so we're going to have to do a lot of work for me to feel comfortable to say that's going to be fully successful, but that is the foundation and that's how it should be. Now, if they had a bunch of doctors Knox in Louisiana, I wouldn't be so concerned, right? Shout out to the Knox docs, but to be truthful, I know that market fairly well. And I do think there's still, again, a little bit of that discrimination that you have to worry about because the physicians and health professionals are still largely white, right? That said, I want to encourage all health professionals, if you are understanding that cannabis is medicine first, get re-educated. Join Doctors for Cannabis Regulation. I'm on the board of directors, very proud of the fact that this is the first organization of doctors that globally support cannabis legalization and science-based regulation. And that's dfcr.org. But also I want to shout out Advent Academy, which is a continuing medical education that has been developed by the doctors Knox. And to me, they really provide a comprehensive overview for people who are interested in clinical cannabis. So before you jump in, and now the state won't regulate whether you can offer it, that means if they're not regulating it, they're not giving education to it. Educate yourself and make sure that you can speak confidently and intelligently around cannabis. And remember, it's not about what you did in college, because that's where I find often is a mistake. Like, when I was in college, no.
It don't count if it was 20 years ago.
Don't count, period. You know why? Because that's still a subjective experience versus we got real science. So maybe, again, do some research, hit that PubMed. If you are a doctor, you understand what that is, and make sure that you are educating yourself on how cannabis is being utilized today. And last but not least, I'm always giving a side eye to a market that doesn't want to include the thing that sells 40 to 50% of the market, and that is flower. Again, I ask in Louisiana, folks, do you want to buy your collard greens fresh, or do you want to get them in a can? And that's really what you got to ask yourself when it comes to whether flower should be in the market. Stop allowing them to demonize it. So happy to see that this is expanding. Golf clap for Louisiana. Shout out to Southern University, who finally coming online and starting to get that cultivation growing. But yeah, I think we're going to have to watch this and see how it goes. But I definitely think education is going to be really important.
Well, I was going to say the shady comment, but I'll leave that for another day and another time, because it will definitely come around, because we got to keep it moving to our next hot topic, which is so juicy. And I love bringing up the tea and talking junk about different things. And so this hot topic number 4 is really highlighting how MedMen are like all the other big corporations of the world. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my God, Birdman hand rub.
And so, yes, MedMen Enterprises, which is a multi-state operator in the cannabis industry, coined itself to be, the Apple of cannabis, really found itself in a lot of hot water last year. We talked about it in season 2, and now we finally get to see the file of the lawsuit that the CFO, James Parker, put against MedMen. So I was like, that's a long, very long paper, and I had to Google some words, but it's pretty juicy.
Not Google some words, but at least you're being honest, though.
Girl, I'm like,
our listeners.
Yes, listen, reading lawsuits, reading legislators, reading bill, you Esquires, really, I gotta tip my hat to you, because geez, I mean, you have to be an encyclopedia to read some of this stuff. And so Parker in the suit alleges that Adam, what's his name? Bierman, who is the CEO of MedMen, made
former CEO.
Oh, excuse me. Former CEO made maximum 10,000 donation to a campaign of a Nevada politician that was not disclosed in the suit. He also alleges in the lawsuit that the CEO illegally forced him to make a similar donation, and they used the funds to illegally buy furniture, and he also made the co-founder illegally donate $10,000. And so as we did more and more digging, the state campaign finance records show that the current governor of Nevada was the only politician to receive the maximum donation from these 3.
So allegedly, the CFO is talking about the governor of Nevada.
Allegedly. And this was all in 2018 when he was running for governor. So actually before it actually happened. And it's so interesting because in the same month when he was serving as the chair of Clark County Commission, he attended the opening of MedMen and coined it MedMen Day. Yes. And as white men and their big corporations do, they fired back with a counter lawsuit to basically say Parker is breaching the contract and some other, allegations that had not been released.
Wow. Well, definitely very, very hot tea. You always find it. You're digging. You're definitely making me want to read this long paper you said to outline it. But what kills me is that this is, a company that lost nearly $100 million, right, in 2018 and 2019. And here we are talking about $10,000 given. And so that's the public record. And that's the max. And that in and of itself is a little bit of that shame on you. But it also makes me wonder, and I do the Birdman hand rub, like, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes. Exactly. This doesn't surprise me. This is how business is being done in the United States, period, with big companies. This is why every corporation, Fortune 500, Fortune 100, has a political group, a lobbying team. This is, they do a better job probably covering their tracks. This Adam Bierman was very, very brazen, very sloppy. And what he's doing is showing all of their tricks beyond just the cannabis industry. So I will say, let me just put it out there. The cannabis industry is not the only ones that are doing this. And so I don't want us again to make us to be the bad sheep or the black sheep of the family, if you will. Some just business in general.
This is what big corporations do.
It is, absolutely. But I'm not surprised. And it doesn't, make me feel bad for them that this is being called out. I think if you want to be that brazen, and in some cases he was just so rude and so lacking emotional IQ that this is kind of what he deserves. But we also, at the end of the day, still only talking about $30,000 that was given to a governor or a potential governor that is now governor. We also know Nevada has seen their struggles, right? Their whole regulatory office essentially got fired, right? And they've been under different levels of investigation from the FBI. So we reported on that in season 2. It was a real shock. In general, this is not just good. This is not good business for cannabis. This is part of why the industry seems and appears so volatile. These are the missteps that big companies are taking all the time. And I've seen it from the inside, and we're looking at it from the outside. And I will say that we need to get back to basics. This is about medicine and social justice. And this wealth generation, like you said, needs to be less about what big white corporations can get more of, and more about what can we do to rebuild our communities and reinvest there. I don't know. I'm gonna drop the mic on that. The Men Day really made me like, yo.
F-U-C-K these people, or what did the Mayor Lightfoot say? She said, I got 2 words for Donald Trump. F-U.
Yeah, I don't know what this is. I can't.
I want to play the devil's advocate, but we only have so much time, because now I have a question, because, you know, as we talk and we're saying, this is what happens in big corporations in general. Did they get caught so quickly because they were cannabis? These are the things that you really have to make your wheels turn in the way that you think about society, the way our money is hoarded and given and dispersed between communities and different industries even. Did they get caught so quickly? Yes, because the CFO ratted them out. But how many of them really are getting picked up by publications to say this or to allude to this? Because, you know, there is a lot of media backing and things like that. So
that's a good question. I think we are definitely, like I said, the much hated cousin of alcohol, and a lot of people still believe alcohol is the devil. So there is a point where we picked on as cannabis, but there's also us playing ourselves because you think you're not being watched, or you think you're not going to be involved. It's why a company would decide to name their product a Dabbuccino, because they're like, Starbucks don't want to F with cannabis, and the Starbucks is like, no, here's a lawsuit for you. So recognize that the minute that we started talking about this could be 30 billion by, or is, you know, projected to be over 20 billion by, we've now changed the game. It becomes a lot different. Now hemp is legal, CBD is a big game changer, and all of the big brands are looking to figure out both channels, right? And they're starting that process. So again, it is, yes, we have to be, sort of, it's like cannabis is the Black folks. You got to be dot your I's, cross your T's, because otherwise they're coming for you. And happen to be Black in cannabis, good luck, Chuck, because they're coming for you even faster. It's definitely it's a sad thing, and I think Men is a disgrace, and most of us know that, and we've been saying that before it really, like, all this tea broke. But
we could definitely write a book about being Black in cannabis and what's it like to really experience the corporate YT professionalism from the ground up. Because sometimes you go in and these corporations have been around for hundreds of years, and this is just the model, but now we get to see it from scratch, and we like, ooh, that's what y'all do?
Yes.
So
yeah, you're right.
And so I definitely wanted to highlight that because we're not letting them get away with nothing. So
no, I think it's important that we call out as much as we can. At the same time, we've got to celebrate ourselves. And I know that we are definitely excited about our main topic, especially as we started about talking about Black Lives Matter and human rights. One of the other ways, in addition to protesting, you can protest with your wallet, and you can decide who you want to buy from. We've done it in with big companies. It helps when we have our celebrities that are like, I'm not wearing Gucci. Then we also need more people to participate. Coming up is a blackout day. It's happening in July. And I'm kind of with a few folks that are in our cannabis community. Why we wait until July? We clearly are in a civil unrest. And so you can choose, again, how you buy. And I do that often with cannabis and with CBD. And so I wanted the opportunity to really just highlight 12 of some of my favorite Black-owned CBD brands that are in the market. We're going to drop those links in an actual post. So we're going to do our top 12 list. But today our main topic are, is Black-owned CBD brands. I get that question a lot, and I wanted to make sure folks knew, and they're across the country in different places, and some places that you would actually not even realize. And I separated them into like tinctures and more of a global assortment. And then there's some, because I love beauty and you love beauty. There's some that are more beauty and personal care. Yeah, I just figured we will get into it. I just want to quickly do a time check, so we're making sure that we are doing pretty good.
We are not doing good at all, honey. So we might have to move this to even next week's episode and really just get people's mouths watering. And maybe say some of the few places that they can order online from so they could get their stuff, and look out for the post that'll be up on Monday morning.
Yes. Okay. So really quickly, I want to shout out, and it's going to go fast. Hemp Haven Wellness Center. We will drop the link. This is a place that I did my bookstore stop. They have a brick and mortar in Laurel, Maryland, but they also have an online, fairly large assortment. We were talking about Louisiana, so I have to shout out Mother Mary Wellness. Shout out to the CB Diva. I love Alicia. She's the first Black-owned CBD company in Louisiana. Holmes Organics is a great one if you want to get into the business. Corey Holmes has like the most comprehensive assortment, and that's in St. Louis. They can also buy online. I also want to shout out Natalie in Mississippi. Notice that we are talking about states below the Bible Belt.
Mason-Dixon line, honey. I'm country. That's the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, so we exist, and CBD is helping us get into this space. But she's our M for MM president for Mississippi, and she has Blue Lotus Creations and a whole bunch of other brands. I gotta shout out Live Piff because they're New York based, and I can't wait. I just ordered their tea, so I'm excited about that.
You sending that to me?
Yeah, you need the tea, shoot. But you got all of it usually, so
I bring the tea.
You bring the tea. And last but not least, two more. Reset Wellness Group. They're DC based. Jason and Tamika have amazing infused lemonade. And then I want to shout out Mary Pryor, who is a part of Tonic CBD and Tricolour Farms. This is a woman-owned business. She's a Black CMO for Tonic CBD, and I've tried their samples and I loved it. So that is some of the tinctures.
Yes, I remember I used that getting on the airplane one time. I don't know why I was having such an uprest. And you were like, girl, try this sample. And I was like, by the time I was at security check, I didn't even know why I was mad.
Yes, they do good mixtures. So definitely want to shout out Tonic CBD. I think she has a deal going on right now. So if you are following Mary Pryor, then you probably will be able to find that 20% coupon. Getting into beauty, personal care, and apparel. Am I just going down? Keep going.
Yeah, just keep it countdown.
I want to shout out my soror, Dorian, who is a Harvard MBA, former Sephora exec, former CoverGirl. She has made a glow elixir that is the truth. Undefined Beauty is her brand, and Undefined Collective is how she's curated a collection of other brands, women-owned brands that are just the bomb, and they are well done. Lily Pearl Beauty is Sabrina's product. She's an amazing Black woman who has previously been a licensed skincare tech, and her products are amazing. I love the body mousse because it has a pain relieving ability as well because it's so well done. Taylor and Tess, I just met with Tess, and so basically gifted a full set. I love the Quickie, the CBD facial toner, and in the buff is the CBD infused African soap.
I love that soap. It's changed my whole skin.
Yeah, listen. Yes, Ilio Wellness is part of the Hollingsworth Hemp Company, and Hollingsworth is a Black family, the first Black family to have farms up in Washington. And Raft and Joy met them at Black Afrotech, and they're amazing. And you can probably see them on Anthony Bourdain's show on CNN. And then Hempress Hill, Kyla Hill is a hemp activist, and she has hemp-based sustainable clothing, and some of them are on sale. Y'all, I'm about to get that sweatshirt because I'm always cold. Yes.
I gotta go look right now.
Please go look. So those are the 12 that I am calling out, and I'm just really excited about. Again, we're going to leave the links, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to have to roll this one back because we had such a deep discussion early on, but there are Black-owned CBD brands out there. There are farms, and I'm getting so many questions and DMs about it, and it's time for us to aggregate it like we do. It won't be 65, but we will get you a list, and it will be circulated and hopefully picked up by some of the bigger publications. So, I want to shout everybody out who has done a great job. I love these products, and I'm proud of our community that's pulling together and making sure that we have a place at this table of cannabis.
Absolutely. And if you want us to talk about your product, put it in our high of the week, definitely send us an email at sheblaze@theweedhead.com.
Yes. Okay, we are finishing up, right?
Yes, we are. It was such a great episode. And of course, I'm miniature shopping with the links. My bad. But I need some retail therapy after this week. I need to remember I love myself.
Yes,
so
you do that too.
Okay, hello. And it can be shipped and not stolen. Hello.
Yes.
And so, this was such a great episode. It was really important that we got some of these things off our chest because I know it's been wearing me down like a ton of bricks that they were throwing at the damn centers and shit. So I am glad that we had the moment to really explain how we feel and show them how we could build from our ashes. Okay.
We can. And there are ways. We just have to stay positive even when it's the darkest. So tell folks where they can find us. I mean, I'm the WeedHead, so it's theweedhead.com.
Or Dasheeda Dawson on Instagram, girl.
Yes. Okay. I'm me.
Okay, I feel you, me. And, you can watch She Blaze on Facebook Live every Saturday morning, and you can listen to us anytime on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and make sure you subscribe to theweedhead.com to see what's blazing in the cannabis industry.
All right. Well, I want you guys to have an amazing week. Ice, have an amazing week. I look forward to doing this again.
Yes, next week. Bye.
Bye.